Hello everyone, my name is Dezhen and today I'm gonna do my final assignment report. The quarterly time series I select is Y3, which is GDP growth rate of Portugal, and the period is from 1961 quarter 1 to 2022 quarter 4. My presentation contains two parts, and now let's move on to the first part. The first part is time series preparation. And here's the plot of Y3. We can see that the Portugal's GDP growth is generally stable and fluctuates within a narrow range with only moderate recessions over the decades. But the series shows an extreme disruption around 2020 when GDP collapsed sharply and then rebounded just as dramatically due to the COVID-19 shock. So due to the obvious structural breaks during pandemic period, which is 2020 to 2022, I decided to remove the data of that period and finally determine the training period is from 1964 quarter 1 to 2017 quarter 4, and the testing period is 2 years after the training period, and the real forecast period is from 2023 quarter 1 to 2024 quarter 4. Here's some descriptive data statistics and the result of test of correlation. The ACF shows strong and significant autocorrelation at lags 1 to 2, and the partial autocorrelation function drops sharply after lag 2. This indicates a clear persistence in the series and suggests that AR2 type model is appropriate, since most dependence is captured by the first two lags. And here's the result of the augmented Dickey-Fuller tests. And according to all three models, which are constant only, training a constant and no exogenous variable, Y3 doesn't contain a unit root. And here's a collective plot of Y3 and Y4. The Y4 is the second selected quarterly time series, which is GDP growth rate of Italy. We can see that the two lines move closely together, showing a strong synchronization of economic cycles, especially after the mid-1990s. This pattern suggests that Portugal and Italy share common macroeconomic shocks, such as oil crisis, the European Union monetary policy, or global financial crisis. And here's the results of some tests. We can see that the Johansen test shows robust and consistent evidence of co-integration, indicating two stable long-run relationship between the two variables. And we can see that Italy and Portugal's GDP growth move closely together, and in the short run, with Italy showing a slight leading effect, while cross-country impacts fade after about 3 lags. And also, we can see from the result of the Granger causality test, both p-values are less than 0.1, which indicates that we can reject the null hypothesis. And this indicates strong two-way predictive relationship between Y3 and Y4, meaning that the economic fluctuations in either country tend to transmit rapidly to the other. Now let's move to the second part, which is the most significant part, forecasting. The first forecast is generated by the best model according to AIC criteria, and the model is ARIMA 717. Here's the plot of the forecast for the testing period. We can see that the model produces an overly smooth forecast that misses the short-term fluctuation in GDP growth, and its high RMSE, which is nearly 87% of the sample mean, indicates weak predictive performance with errors nearly as large as the actual data. Sorry, here's the real forecast for this model. And the second graphic here without confidence interval is to show the trend more clearly. We can see that the forecast for F1 real shows a noticeable amount of quarter-to-quarter fluctuation, with values swinging from negative territory in early 2023 to a brief positive spike in early 2024 before easing again. This pattern suggests the model anticipates some short-run dynamics rather than a flat or purely mean reverting path. And the second forecast is generated by the GARCH11 model with residuals from the best ARIMA model, which is ARIMA 717. And here's the plot of the forecast of the testing period. And we can see that the F2 forecast tracks overall GDP levels more closely, but remains too smooth to capture short-term fluctuations. However, with an RMSE of 0.29, which is about 37% of the mean, it represents a clear and meaningful improvement in predictive accuracy over the previous model. And here's the real forecast of F2. It shows largely flat and overly smooth paths with only slight early increases, while steadily widening the confidence bands and the rising variance indicates, growing uncertainty, despite almost no change in the mean. The third forecast is generated by the VEC model, and here's the real forecast for the model as well. We can see that the Y3 forecast matches the overall level of actual series, but misses the sharper quarter-to-quarter fluctuations. It captures the long-run mean while underestimating the short-term dynamics and volatility, resulting in overly smooth predictions. And no confidence interval generated for the real forecast due to some issue with eViews, but we can also interpret the trend. So the forecast displays a clear short run rise followed by a gradual tapering off. For Y3, the model projects a steady increase through most of 2023, peaking around Q3 and then a noticeable decline throughout 2024 before stabilizing slightly toward the end of the horizon. This produces a clear hump-shaped pattern. It's an initial expansion phase followed by sustained easing. And here's a plot with all the forecasts, the real data, and the combined forecast. From this plot, we can see that F3 tracks the overall level of Y3 most steadily, but reacts poorly to short-term fluctuations. While F2 captures direction better, but consistently underestimates the amplitude. And F1 performs the worst with large bias deviations. The combined forecast CF1 outperforms all individuals' model by balancing their strengths, correcting F1's extremes, tempering F2's underreaction, and preserving F3's level accuracy. So overall, CF1 provides the most reliable and well-rounded forecast, with F3 as the best single model. And F2 is moderate and F1 is weakest. Here's the combined real forecast. We can see that the three individual forecasts show contrasting dynamics. ARIMA produces sharp cyclical swings, and GARCH generates a steadily rising trend, and VEC yields a smooth, near-flat path with minimal short-run variations. So the combined forecast CF real moderates these extremes, creating a balanced trend with a mild dip in 2023 and smoother recovery in 2024. So generally, I find the combined forecast is, the most reliable. And that's the end of my presentation. And thank you all for listening. And if there are any questions or comments,